The Mothman of Point Pleasant. A bedtime story. Tonight we take you on a mysterious journey into the heart of West Virginia, where a small town in the 1960s faced the unexplainable. Was it an omen? A creature from another world? The story of the Mothman has captivated imaginations for decades, so settle in, relax, and let us take you into the night of Point Pleasant, where shadows and secrets lie just beneath the surface. Point Pleasant was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else, and strangers were few and far between. Nestled along the Ohio River, it had a peaceful charm that felt a world away from the hustle of bigger cities. The townspeople were used to a life of routine. They worked, went to church, gathered at local diners, and enjoyed the slow pace of their small community. But all of that changed in late 1966, when the town's tranquility was shattered by something no one could explain. Welcome back to our channel, The Stuffed Capsicum, where we serve up an enticing mix of educational and entertaining content. It began one crisp evening in November. A young couple, Linda Scarberry and Roger Scarberry, were out for a drive. The sun had long since set, and a cool fog had begun to settle over the landscape. The road they traveled was narrow and wound through dense woods, its twists and turns leading them toward the old TNT plant, a place that had been abandoned after World War II. The plant itself was a relic of a bygone era, its empty buildings standing like ghosts in the forest, slowly being swallowed by nature. The drive had been uneventful at first, with the couple chatting softly and listening to the radio. But as they rounded a bend, something made Linda sit up straight. She gasped and grabbed Roger's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Roger, what is that?" she whispered, pointing ahead. Roger squinted into the darkness, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. There, in the middle of the road, was a figure, something tall, much taller than any person. As the headlights of the car illuminated the figure, they both saw it clearly. It was at least 7 feet tall, with enormous wings that stretched out on either side of its body. But what frightened them the most were its eyes. 2 glowing red orbs that seemed to pierce through the night, staring straight at them. For a moment, the creature didn't move. It simply stood there, its wings folded against its back, its red eyes locked on the couple. Linda and Roger were frozen in their seats, unable to look away. Time seemed to stretch on forever as they stared back at the figure, their hearts pounding in their chests. Then, without warning, the creature spread its wings with a loud rustle, like the sound of leather being unfurled. In one smooth motion, it lifted off the ground and soared into the sky, disappearing over the trees and into the darkness. Linda and Roger sat in stunned silence for a moment, the night suddenly feeling much colder and more dangerous than it had before. Roger's hands were trembling as he gripped the steering wheel. Without saying a word, he pressed down on the gas, and the car sped away, leaving the empty road and the eerie figure behind them. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of town, where they immediately told their story to anyone who would listen. At first, people were skeptical. Point Pleasant wasn't the kind of place where monsters lurked in the shadows. But as the days passed, more and more people began to come forward with their own strange encounters. The creature, which the newspapers quickly dubbed the Mothman, seemed to be everywhere. It was seen flying over the town at night, its wings casting long shadows on the ground below. People claimed to have seen it perched on the tops of buildings, its glowing red eyes watching them as they walked by. Some even said they had heard strange, high-pitched screeches in the dead of night, sounds that sent chills down their spines. As the sightings continued, the town of Point Pleasant became gripped with fear and curiosity. What was this creature? Where had it come from, and why had it chosen their quiet little town? Some believed the Mothman was an omen, a warning of something terrible to come. Others thought it might be a creature from another world, a visitor from beyond the stars. But no matter what they believed, one thing was certain: the Mothman was real, and it had come to Point Pleasant. One of the most terrifying encounters came from 2 young couples, Steve and Mary Millette, and Mark and Connie Thomas. They had heard about the Mothman sightings and, curious to see the creature for themselves, decided to take a drive one evening. Their destination: the old TNT plant, the place where many of the sightings had occurred. The road was quiet as they approached the plant, the trees lining the path like dark sentinels. The air was thick with tension, and the couples found themselves speaking in hushed tones, as though they didn't want to disturb the night. As they neared the plant, they saw something up ahead, something that made them stop the car. At first, they thought it was just a shadow, maybe a large bird. But as they looked closer, they realized it was much more than that. Standing just beyond the tree line, partially obscured by the branches, was the Mothman. Its eyes, those same glowing red eyes that Linda and Roger had described, stared at them through the darkness. Its wings were folded, but they could see the outline of its massive body, tall and foreboding. For a moment, the creature didn't move. It simply watched them, as if it were studying them, waiting for something. The couples could feel its gaze, a cold, unsettling feeling that seemed to reach deep into their bones. Then, with a loud, eerie screech, the Mothman unfolded its wings and lifted off into the sky. The sound of its wings flapping was like the beat of a drum, deep and resonant as it disappeared into the night. The couple sat in stunned silence, their hearts racing, their skin covered in goosebumps. They knew they had just seen something that defied explanation, something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. The sightings continued over the following weeks. The people of Point Pleasant were on edge, afraid of what the creature might do next. Some believed the Mothman was trying to warn them of something terrible, while others feared it was a harbinger of doom. But as the town grappled with the mystery, something far worse was brewing on the horizon. Something that would change Point Pleasant forever. On December 15, 1967, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, was packed with cars. It was the holiday season, and people were out shopping, visiting family, and preparing for Christmas. The bridge, which had stood for nearly 40 years, was a vital connection between the two towns, and it was always busy this time of year. But on that cold December day, something went terribly wrong. Without warning, the bridge began to groan and shake. Drivers felt their cars jolt as the structure beneath them gave way. In a matter of seconds, the bridge collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River below, taking dozens of vehicles with it. Chaos erupted as people tried to escape their sinking cars, but the frigid water was unforgiving. Rescue efforts were launched, but for many, it was too late. 46 lives were lost that day, and the town of Point Pleasant was left in shock and mourning. The collapse of the Silver Bridge was a tragedy that shook the community to its core, leaving behind a deep sense of grief and loss. In the days following the disaster, many in Point Pleasant couldn't help but wonder if the Mothman had been trying to warn them all along. Several people had reported seeing the creature near the bridge in the days leading up to the collapse. Some had spotted it flying overhead, its red eyes glowing in the foggy mornings. Others had dreamt of the Mothman, its wings casting a shadow over the town as if it were trying to shield them from what was to come. But after the bridge collapsed, the sightings stopped. The Mothman, it seemed, had vanished just as mysteriously as it had appeared. Some believed the creature had fulfilled its purpose, delivering its warning and then retreating back into the shadows. Others were not so sure, wondering if the Mothman might one day return. John Keel, a journalist who had been investigating the Mothman sightings, was convinced that the creature was connected to the disaster. He had spent months interviewing witnesses and piecing together the strange events that had unfolded in Point Pleasant. Keel believed the Mothman was a harbinger of disaster, though whether it had come to help or simply observe remained a mystery. His book, The Mothman Prophecies, would go on to document the strange occurrences in the town and cement the Mothman's place in folklore. As time passed, the story of the Mothman became legend. People from all over the world began visiting Point Pleasant, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature or learn more about the strange happenings of the 1960s. The town even embraced its mysterious past, hosting an annual Mothman festival to celebrate the legend. A statue of the Mothman with its gleaming red eyes and large outstretched wings now stands in the center of town, a reminder of the days when fear and wonder gripped Point Pleasant. But for those who lived through those strange and terrifying nights, the memories remain vivid. Some believe the Mothman was a guardian, trying to protect the town from disaster. Others are still haunted by the sight of those glowing red eyes, watching them from the shadows. The Mothman may be gone, but its presence still lingers in the minds of the people of Point Pleasant. As you lay your head to rest, remember that the world is full of mysteries, some of which may never be explained. The Mothman of Point Pleasant remains one of those mysteries, an unsolved puzzle from a time when the ordinary collided with the extraordinary. Who knows what other secrets the night may hold? Thank you for joining us tonight on Capsicum Chronicles, Unwind with Bedtime Tales. As we leave the mystery of the Mothman behind, let your dreams carry you to far-off places where the strange and wonderful await. Sleep well, dreamer, and may your night be filled with peace and curiosity. Until next time, good night from all of us here at the Stuffed Capsicum. And that brings us to the end of another captivating journey with the Stuffed Capsicum. Thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of our global community of knowledge seekers. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our exciting videos filled with fascinating facts, surprising discoveries, and a touch of AI magic. Stay stuffed with knowledge by exploring our diverse playlists and be sure to share your favorite videos with friends and family. We appreciate your support and can't wait to continue serving up a delectable mix of educational and entertaining content. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those stuffed capsicums of wonder rolling.